Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're a busy professional trying to level up your career, your health, or your finances, I'm betting you've been sold that whole overnight success fluff at some point, right? Well, today, we are tossing that completely out the window. Instead, we're diving into a high ROI operational guide based on Darren Hardy's insights from the compound effect. We're going to break down how you can actually achieve those massive goals through practical, structured efficiency. No gimmicks, just mechanics.
So let me ask you this. What if the biggest barrier to your goals isn't a lack of talent or intelligence or even motivation? I really want to challenge your current operating system right now, because the reality we're unpacking today is that our daily micro-choices, those tiny, seemingly insignificant decisions we make every couple of hours, are actually the real culprits behind our stagnation.
See, most of us fall right into this massive trap. We live in a world that just demands dramatic results. We want to drop 10 pounds fast, get promoted instantly, or literally transform our entire lives by next Tuesday. And when that doesn't happen, boom, we quit. But the reality is that true long-term success is built entirely differently. It is all about making tiny, consistent actions that compound over time.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We've got a highly structured executive playbook for you today. First, we'll look at the trap. Then we'll move into the efficiency engine, and finally, we'll break down our three-step actionable checklist. Step 1 is daily tracking, Step 2 is an environment audit, and Step 3 is building unstoppable momentum. All right, starting with part 1, the trap and the overnight success myth. Let's systematically dismantle this harmful idea that derails so many high achievers before they even really get going.
Just imagine two professionals starting from the exact same baseline. First, we have the quitter. Now, they make slightly worse decisions. Maybe they watch an extra hour of TV or grab some fast food on the way home. Individually, one skipped workout absolutely doesn't matter, but they expect instant results, and when they don't see them, they give up. On the flip side, we have the compounder. They make slightly better decisions. They read, say, just 10 pages of industry insights a day, they exercise a little bit, and crucially, they trust the process. For months, you literally cannot tell these two apart. But give it a few years, one is an industry leader and the other is totally stuck. That massive gap wasn't created overnight. It was built daily.
Let's move on to part 2, the efficiency engine. This right here is the core formula for generating an incredible return on investment in your life. So, the crucial point is the central equation. Small choices plus consistency plus time equals massive results. Think of an airplane flying from LA to New York. If the nose is off by just 1 single degree at takeoff, the plane ends up in a completely different state. That's the tricky part about all this. These micro adjustments are totally invisible at first. You're not going to become an industry expert after reading just one article, and you definitely won't get wealthy just by saving your first 10 bucks. But over months and years, these tiny actions compound exactly like interest in a bank account. Now we get to the actionable checklist, starting with Step 1, daily tracking. Because, quite frankly, you absolutely cannot improve what you do not measure.
And this brilliantly illustrates why tracking is so vital. There is a massive, honestly dangerous gap between perception and reality. In almost every critical area of life, what busy professionals think they're doing is vastly different from what's actually happening. You might think you're highly productive with your time, but without measuring it, you are likely wasting hours every single day on distractions. You might think you're saving adequately, but you're actually leaking funds on small, unnoticed purchases like expensive coffees or those random forgotten subscriptions. This is exactly why human intuition is a terrible substitute for hard data.
So to close that gap, you need to implement strict daily tracking protocols. You have got to ruthlessly track your habits, your spending, your exercise, and your productivity. And look, it doesn't matter if you use a simple pocket notebook or some fancy dedicated app. Why do we do this? Because measurement creates awareness, and awareness is the fundamental prerequisite for change. If you don't know exactly where your resources are going, you have absolutely zero power to redirect them toward your goals.
Okay, once you have your tracking in place, we move right along to Step 2, the environment audit. This is all about taking control of the external factors that quietly dictate your operating system.
I want you to ask yourself right now and be really honest. Do the people around you actually support the person you want to become? The source material makes this crystal clear. Your social and professional circles have a massive influence on your future. You simply cannot out-willpower a bad environment.
It's a fact that your habits will naturally mirror your environment. If you curate a high-performance workspace, meaning you surround yourself with ambitious, solution-oriented people, growth naturally becomes the path of least resistance. You just naturally elevate your game to match theirs. But if you're stuck in a toxic environment defined by a water cooler complaining, negativity, and constant distractions, your personal improvement becomes an exhausting uphill battle. You have to deliberately curate who and what you allow into your professional and personal sphere.
Finally, we reach step 3, unstoppable momentum. Let's look at the actual physics of how lasting habits are formed and, more importantly, maintained over time.
Let's see how this builds. Imagine you're pushing a giant snowball. That first phase, starting, is always the hardest. It requires maximum effort just to budget an inch. Think about a manager trying to implement a brand new team protocol. The friction on day 1 is immense. But as you transition to phase 2, you get rolling. Routines form, and things actually become slightly easier. Finally, you hit the third phase, unstoppable momentum. Progress starts to literally feel automatic, and the new protocol is just how we do things around here. The entire goal of our tracking and our environmental audits is simply to get us to that unstoppable third phase.
Now, a major hurdle in reaching that unstoppable phase is relying on the wrong fuel. Motivation comes and goes. It relies on fleeting inspiration. If you only work on your goals when you feel motivated, I promise you, you will never build momentum. What you actually need is consistency, discipline that lasts. The executives who succeed aren't necessarily the most motivated people in the room, they are simply the most consistent. They keep executing even when they don't feel like it, because they know true results come from steady repetition, not some sudden burst of inspiration.
There is a brilliant quote from the source text that hits the nail on the head. The moment you stop looking for excuses, you start creating solutions. This emphasizes the foundational role of extreme personal responsibility in this entire system. Successful professionals flat out refuse to blame the economy, bad luck, or their boss. They only ask one question: what can I control? When you take absolute ownership, you stop giving your power away to external circumstances.
Let's quickly summarize everything we've covered today in this executive playbook. Remember, your life is simply the resulting sum of thousands of tiny daily choices, not your grand intentions. Small actions dictate your future. Consistency will always beat short bursts of intensity. You absolutely must track your behavior relentlessly to gain awareness. You need to audit your environment to ensure it supports your growth. And above all else, you must take absolute personal responsibility for every outcome.
Every small action you take is casting a vote for the person you are becoming. So, I'll ask you, what small choice will you track today? Don't wait for tomorrow. Pick one micro behavior, start measuring it right now, and let the compound effect go to work for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time.